So Unnatural Vegan has been replying to vegan critics. She's created a series called Replying to Vegan Critics. There are 2 installments out so far, and she's replied to people as high level as Superhuman Dance. You guys remember that Galaxy Brain who debated vegan gains? I had to go on the stream and explain to him that you can't create a formal argument where you represent different propositions with the same propositional variable. So I mean, if she's replying to people that high level, maybe I can get a reply to my critique of her meta-ethics. Now, my critique is currently sitting there in the form of a pretty long video. It's a live, one-take recording of me watching through one of her videos and replying point by point. I understand that kind of thing can be a bit cumbersome to watch through, so I figure that I can raise my odds of getting a reply if I condense my critique down to a quick, well-edited, to-the-point video. So that's what I'm doing here today. So the critique is as follows. I don't think that Unnatural Vegan has defined objectivism sufficiently clearly to rule out relativism while preserving normativity. Now, if either of those things aren't her goal, she can just say so, and I'll say great, fantastic. But if they are, I don't see how she's done it. So let's watch some clips of her video, and I'll explain why this is the case.
But this video is not about that. It's actually about objective morality, because while Cosmic Skeptic denies the existence of objective morality as kind of a big part of his presence on YouTube, he also unintentionally outlines some pretty strong arguments in favor of objective morality in this video. So the first argument is something that if you're vegan, you've probably heard before numerous times. It's the, why we love one but eat the other. It's basically a consistency test. However you frame this, from Peter Singer's marginal cases to more recent, more simplistic memes, it challenges the consistency of us devaluing certain animals for reasons that we would never use to devalue other animals like pets or human beings.
Humans are superior to other animals because of X, and therefore we can eat them. Yeah, few problems with that. Firstly, by what metric are we superior? Perhaps the only feasible answer to this is something along the lines of intelligence. Clearly, human beings possess a higher cognitive ability than, say, a chicken. But my question is this: what relevance does that hold to morality? Why should intelligence be the metric by which we measure moral worth? It's arbitrary. It means nothing in itself.
Cosmic Skeptic finds this argument compelling as a subjectivist, but I think he misses an important point, which is that inconsistent value systems are not valid. Consistency itself is an objective principle by which we can say that one moral view is more credible than another.
Oh man, I could say a lot of stuff about that, but I'm going to try to stick to the core point. I don't understand how anything that Swayze just said is incompatible with relativism. Again, recall my critique. I don't think she's given a construal of objective morality that is incompatible with relativism while retaining normativity. I want her to just grant that she's losing one of those features. Either it is a relative system, or it's not a normative system, or to give the construal that somehow has both features. Now, let's say that we have 2 mutually exclusive but internally consistent moral systems A and B. A says that it's wrong to kill black people, B says that it's right to kill black people. Now, both of those systems are going to pass the bar for consistency, unless Swayze thinks that she can derive a contradiction on one of them, which I'd love to see her try to do, right? We can agree that one of those systems is evil, but that's different from meaning that it's inconsistent, that it contains a contradiction, okay? Now, if we have mutually exclusive systems passing the bar, we've got relativism, right? Now, I don't want to strawman Swayze. I'm not saying that consistency is all there is to her system of objective morality. I'm just saying that so far what she's presented, which is this principle of consistency, isn't sufficient to rule out relativism.
So is it consistent to accept speciesism but reject the validity of racism or sexism? I don't think so. I don't think it would be, but Cosmic Skeptic seems to disagree.
So as you can tell, a further problem is that Swayze seems to have no idea what consistency means, right? A logician will tell you that a set of propositions is consistent if and only if it doesn't contain a contradiction. It's not a contradiction to say that I'm not a racist, but I'm a speciesist. That's not proposition and negation. You're not saying I'm a racist and it's not the case that I'm a racist, or I'm a speciesist and it's not the case I'm a speciesist. Those are just 2 separate propositions. No contradiction, no inconsistency. So when Swayze talks about this bar of consistency, that alone, as I've said before, is not enough to rule out relativism, but it's not even clear that that bar is well defined because she doesn't seem to understand what consistency means.
If you said to me that actually, yes, you do think it's justifiable to kill human beings of lower intelligence for meat, I want to talk you out of it, of course, but I can absolutely see why you'd think the same thing about animals, and at least you'd be being consistent.
Would that really be consistent, though? Would it really be consistent to accept some arbitrary quality like intelligence, but reject another arbitrary quality like eyesight, or as already mentioned, species, race, gender?
Now, this is a bit technical, but just follow me, okay? I'll deal with the language of arbitrarity in a second, but just another point on consistency. It would be inconsistent only if they did something like they made a universally quantified statement. You know, like for all x, if x is arbitrary, then x is morally irrelevant, and then they were to make some kind of existential statement like there exists an x such that x is arbitrary and x is not morally irrelevant, right? Then you'd get a contradiction, sure, but someone doesn't need to make anything like that universally quantified statement. They could just state the propositions that I'm a speciesist and I'm not a racist. That's not a contradiction. So now let's talk about arbitrarity. So Swayze's running into the relativism problem again here, right? She wants to invoke this concept of arbitrarity to rule out certain characteristics like gender from being morally relevant. But she's not explaining what her standard of arbitrarity is, and more importantly, she's not explaining why her standard is itself not arbitrary, right? She seems to be suggesting that there's some kind of non-relativistic construal of morality by which we can say that certain qualities are arbitrary. What is that non-relativistic construal, Swayze?
Cosmic Skeptic answers this pretty well. He refers to John Rawls in his pretty popular thought experiment, The Original Position, that aims to arrange society without bias, so objectively. It involves starting from a position of ignorance, so not knowing what position you will take in a society, and then coming up with an ideally fair society based on that.
It's not clear to me how the original position can save you from the relativism problem, even if we grant for the sake of argument something that you haven't established, which is that everyone's value judgments will converge in the original position. The original position is just a subcategory of the total category of situations that we can make value judgments about. Unless you have some kind of argument to show that someone is wrong, if they say, sure, our value judgments converge in the original position and they diverge elsewhere, then I don't see how the original position can serve as any kind of bar to rule out one of two internally consistent but mutually exclusive value systems, like systems A and B that I gave you earlier. So it seems like we're still going to end up with relativism, and this doesn't help at all.
And deontology, if it were consistent.
This one is not directly relevant to my main point, but it's just Swayze makes these claims that she could never fucking defend. Okay, Swayze, if you think that deontology is inconsistent, then I expect you to actually be able to demonstrate a contradiction. Now, we established earlier that you don't really know what consistency even is, so maybe now that I've clarified for you what it is, you'll back off of this claim, but if you're going to stick to it, then I want to see you derive a contradiction from propositions necessarily entailed by deontology. And on that slightly tangential point, I'm actually going to end this video because I think it's getting a little longer than I wanted it to be. I want it to be nice and short and sweet, nice and streamlined, so Swayze can easily make her way through it and understand the critique. I think that the critique has come across clearly. I don't think that Swayze has given a construal of objective morality that is simultaneously non-relativistic and normative. If she doesn't think she can, then she should admit this and grant that her view doesn't have at least one of those features. If she does think she can, then I'd like to see her do it. If she wants to address any other points that I've made here or elsewhere, like maybe proving her weird assertion that deontology is inconsistent, I'd love to see her do that. Please drive the contradiction, Swayze. Of course, if she makes a response, I'm happy to reply to it. If she wants to have a live conversation or debate, which obviously she'll never do, I'm, of course, happy to do that also. And if you guys like this content, please consider supporting on Patreon. That is my bread and butter. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everyone who donates on there. There's also PayPal, and there's Teespring if you want merch. And if you guys want to just discuss issues and sort of hang out with the community who's interested in these kind of things, then come by the Discord. That's linked down below. That's all for today. Till next time.